Welcome, Wayfarers. Thank you for joining us on ILA Radio, where we tune into all ways of knowing. I'm your host, Laura Alyn, and joining us is Wanako Oberhuber. How are you?
Hi, hi, nice to see you, and I'm fine.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you give us an overview of all the different things that you're into?
Okay, well, that gets a bit difficult because there's so many. So I'm actively into creative endeavors. I've been a student of anthropology, so I have a master's degree in anthropology. I am a early childhood educator, and I've written a lot, and I've performed in many different ways that I've put myself out there, including having exhibitions and reading, and I've also worked as an energy worker, chakra technician, and things like that. So I'm very versatile.
Incredible. So you're the perfect person for this show, a true polymath that brings a bunch of different things together into your one being. So by putting yourself out there and trying all these different ways, how do you experience bringing in knowledge? Like, what are the different ways that you know what you know?
Well, there's quite a depth to that question that you need to ponder. When you think of knowing or knowledge, so do you know or is it knowledge? Because there's all these things that you can learn. You can learn it by heart. You can get to know all this information. Doesn't mean that it's correct, just that it's information that you have stored in your system. And then there's this other place of knowing that is a place of where you actually know because it's a it's like it comes up, and when you know, then it actually is true. And you have no way of denying it because everything fits to that. So like if you like I would have these experiences where I'd ask, okay, I'm taking the bus and at the end station it doesn't go all the way to where I live, but will someone be there to take me along because I wasn't being picked up and stuff like that. And I would get this when I got the knowing, when the knowing was there, I would know if would be there or not, or if someone would take me along that I knew, right? And if it wasn't there, then usually nothing, it didn't work out. So I knew there was a difference.
Yeah. So would you call that intuition or is it an instinct? How would you name that feeling of knowing?
Well, it's something deeper. I don't know. I haven't fathomed exactly where that comes from yet. I mean, I have many ideas about it, but I do know that there is that state of being or that state of knowing that exists because I've had plenty of experiences with that.
Hmm. And so would you say that that sense of knowing is in your soul, in your body, your spirit? Like, could you think about it that way?
I can't pinpoint it. So no, I can't say it comes from the body or from the mind or from spirit. It is when it's there, it's true, and I know it's true. And when it's not, I don't have any. I know that I have to move through things without knowing. I have to live with that. But when it's there, it's awesome because it's certain. There's certainty in it.
Okay, so on the show, we talk about like the academics behind the different ways of knowing. And so if we're thinking about you made the distinction of knowing like this internal, just like gut, or maybe you didn't even say gut. Is it a gut? Like knowing you don't know somewhere in your body you know, versus learning a bunch of facts and not knowing if they're true or not. So is it possible to learn a bunch of facts and test them in order to figure out, to discern what is true knowledge versus what is not, and to get to that same point of 100% knowing the way that you could feel it inside?
I don't think that's possible.
Hmm.
So I believe there that you can work with all these things that you've learned, and you can figure out whether they work or not in the environment that you're in at that time. but in another environment, it may not work at all. So even if it worked every time in the environment that I'm in, I cannot guarantee that it's true for a different environment or for a different state of mind.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's a very, very differentiate. I need to differentiate that. So yes, there you can research things and you can go through all those paths of science and social science and natural science and so on, but none of that is something that can lead to an absolute knowing that comes from that comes from somewhere else. It can it can understanding things or be you can have an experience and then discover various people who have researched about that type of experience and so on, or have had experiences of their own. And then you can get a feeling, okay, I'm not alone with this. There's more to it, right? And then it can deepen the your own experience, but it's not the source of the experience.
Hmm. So, okay, the way that I'm trying to think about this is if we have a bunch of different people experiencing the same event, everyone's going to see it differently. And so some people could say that this event is true because they studied this for however long and they know that it's true. And they could also have the other person, the other side, that says they only know that it's true, not because of all the things that they've learned academically, but because of what they feel inside. But the event is still true in the way that they recount it. Does that make sense? Is that true?
Well, everyone has their own way of seeing the world, and that's why this discovery that there might be a way of seeing the world that could be universal is something that you probably won't have as long as you're living in the experience of having a body. So yes, you can have a common experience in the sense that you all agree on certain parts of it, but that doesn't make it more real than another experience. It's just real, but it is something that you need to work with because it's your experience, right? So
I guess
yeah.
I'm trying to ask, like, how do you discern then what is true and what is not true in the academic sense?
Well, the academic sense is always by comparison and whether things can repeat themselves or not, right? But just because something repeats itself 20,000 times, it just makes it something that you can depend upon as long as the conditions are the same, right? But
Hmm.
it's not something that is universally true because as long as you're a body and your body is something that decays and ends and so on, you can't say that that's something that's going to last, right? You'll say, okay, I can depend on my body. Next morning, I'll be awake again and I'll be moving around. But is that certain? No, because the body could end at any time. So yes, scientific research is very very cool because of the dependability, but it's not a dependability that is eternal. And science always has this renewal process of discovering, okay, then there's one reason why this didn't work, then maybe it's not true anymore. And then you have to question everything. So it gets very, so science has established the idea that nothing is eternally true
Hmm.
because as soon as they've found something that disagrees with it that actually shows something that a variant that disagrees with it under similar conditions are the same, then it gets questioned.
Hmm.
So,
Exactly. So you mentioned that when you have the true knowing, then you're good and you're just gonna follow it. But in the times that you don't have that true knowing, you said, like, what do you do in that situation? Do you fall back on what science tells us, or do you kind of wing it, or what's your experience like with that?
well, when you don't have that knowing, you can only go with what you've established that works so far, right? When you have the knowing, you can depend on that, but when you don't have that experience, then you are just need to trust that there is a level of you that does know, of course. or something that does know, but you do need to walk through. You will probably fall back on your habits and your and what you're used to, or you'll even when you do know, you may not follow that, right? I've also not followed it, right? Because I couldn't believe that that's possible, right?
Ooh,
So,
so that's another way of knowing is like the narrative way of knowing, like in psychology they call it the self-fulfilling prophecy, that if you have this story in your head and the knowing is telling you something that fits outside of this story, it's really hard to shift your mindset to bring that knowing into the story. Have you experienced that?
well, yeah, when you know something, you have a hard time believing it, right? Because you had plans. You planned to do something in a certain way, like you get this impression, okay, you need to leave earlier than usual, right?
Yeah.
Will you do it or not? Right? Because you were planning for having another half hour of rest or whatever you wanted, right? And then you get this thing that says, "Hey, you better leave now." Right? So it's not easy because you're so invested in your plans. So you need to be able to release yourself from plans when things like that come up, and that's a learning process. It's not something that happens right away.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk more about that? Like any tips on how to surrender? Because I think that it's really, really difficult to let go of plans and to surrender fully.
Yeah, it certainly is a challenge for me, and but there have been times where I have accepted the knowing and acted on it, and that has always been a good idea. And when I didn't, it wasn't a good idea. But I mean, it's not that the end of the world or anything happened because of that. But the good things that would have come from following that knowing were, of course, not possible.
Mhm.
Maybe at a later point when a knowing comes again, you'll have learned the lesson, but it's not necessarily the first thing you do when you have an experience like that.
Mhm. So, getting into your astrology, you have Aries as your rising sign, and so being in Aries rising, it's like that spark, the fire coming out, and it's also like with like childhood. And so you talked about being a childhood educator, and I really want to get into that. But could you also share with us like how you were in school?
In school. Okay. So that's a fun one. Well, it depended on what was happening in school and how much I was interested in it. And when I loved the subjects, I could go really deep. But it but when I didn't like it, it was hard. Yeah, and certain things. Yes, how was I in school? Yeah, I guess when something interests me, I'd invest. But if the teachers would have a problem with the way I approached it or was interested in it, I might lose interest in it with time, at least in the way the teacher's doing it.
So you like wanted more
Maybe.
freedom in school.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm. So, could you talk to us now about what it is that you do with early childhood?
Okay. Well, the idea in early childhood education is to pick the kids up where they are. So you use what they're interested in. So it's actually the more freedom that I would have wanted is what I'm supposed to give the kids now in my work is to actually observe, pick up what they're interested in and foster their interests and support them in going further. And yeah, it's a balance act because you need to also offer things that they may not know yet or
Mm-hmm.
may not have experienced yet so that they can pick up on that if they're interested in it. So
Yeah.
it's not always easy to decide where do you offer and where do you and how much and how deep you go with picking up, of course, as far as the kid wants to go, no further. So it's always very interesting, and what the kids pick up is very interesting.
Yeah. So
And
do you work at a school, or like what's the situation like with them? With like how much freedom can you offer them?
I'm working in a kindergarten. That's why so that's early childhood, not school yet. And yeah,
Okay.
how much freedom? Well, you do have a day, a structure for the day, and you do need to have a certain amount of rules so that the group can be coherent. And so you do need to use your ability to keep the group together, working together. You do need to use a whole lot of tools there. But yes, the freedom that you can offer is depends on how, yeah, how well you master that. It's, I mean, the more the you find a way for the kids to feel comfortable with having these minimal amount of rules. You're not supposed to have too many. And also the other side is to empower the kids to participate in the making of all those rules, the few rules actually, and also the co-creation of their education, right? Because it's not a school education. It's not supposed to be like school, where you have I mean, the classical school where there's a teacher in the front and the kids listen and do what the teacher says. It's not supposed to be that. The kids are supposed to participate in their education, in their decisions, and be part of the whole process.
Hmm. Yeah, so they had like that buy-in for sure. But like, so with the freedom though, let's say like one kid wants to learn about dinosaurs and another person wants to learn about unicorns. Like, how do you get like how the structure to say like, oh no, like we're learning about plants and you can choose between like sunflowers or roses. And I guess I'm asking like how much freedom do they have in like the way that they're learning, or like the like does one person get to dance and the other person get to play with tools or something? I don't know. It's things off the top of my head.
Yeah, we do our best to offer as many opportunities as possible, but of course you can't do everything at the same time.
Hmm.
But there is a certain amount of freedom that is offered by allowing the kids to choose the books they want to have in the room, to participate in the choosing of the games they want to have there, the materials. And for the creative area, for instance, to have plenty different materials so they can actually choose and do things with that, right? And then the other side is showing them how ways to use those materials and tools. So it's yeah, it's of course you can't fit everything, but you do your best to cater to all individualities. And you also have a range of ages of kids in the group. So it's not like you're having, so you also need to differentiate. So you have to offer things where for the older kids, for the younger kids, for the ones in the middle, and so on. So because we have like from 3 to 6 year olds. So there's 3 year olds, 4 year olds, 6 year olds. But on top of that, you have kids that may be a 3 year old, but is interested in things that right now only the 6 year olds seem to be interested in. So you need to find a way to include that kid too, if it's interested in that. So it's not always the age group. It can be also interest groups. It can be project based, like they want to bring something about, and then and then work together to do that. And it's also like I said, it's a very interesting act of how much do you offer so the kids can find out whether they're interested in it, or you find out whether they actually have experience with it. Because I did stuff with tools and wood in the summer, and then there were some kids who had prior experience and others who didn't, right? And then there were those who got engaged with it and others who didn't, or with music when I do things with rhythm and sticks and making rhythm and singing and so on. Yeah, there's kids who are interested and kids who are not so interested, but everyone approaches it differently. And
Hmm.
that's where it gets really fascinating because you need to become willing to engage with that great variety of interests and approaches to things.
Definitely. But like how many teachers are there per students? Because I think it's really hard. Like some of the schools out here, it's like 30 kindergartners for one teacher. So like it wouldn't be possible to do all these different things with like that ratio difference.
Yeah, well, in where I'm working, where I'm the kindergarten teacher, and then I have an assistant. We're two people for 22 kids.
Hmm.
So yeah, we do have that issue. In the summer, it was easier because there were a lot less kids, so I could be a lot more yeah, go into the individual needs in a much deeper way of the kids that were there than I can during the year. But I will do my best when the group is full to reach everyone as well, right? It's
Yeah.
just a it's just a different way of reaching them, right? When you can be one on one or two, one on three or one on two or whatever, or one on five. It's different than when you're one on 10 or on 11
Yeah, for
or
sure.
22 at times.
Mhm. So I wanted to shift over to talk about your podcast. Could you tell us about that?
Okay, so I'm the host of a podcast that is about A Course in Miracles and interdisciplinary synergies. And since I have a background in various areas, like in arts and in anthropology and in education, and so I have a an interest in many subjects and also in spirituality because I've and also the way of working with energies and also the ideas of being able to connect with various ways of getting to know or putting things together in ways that are new. It gets very interesting and intricate. And that's why I love having people from very, very many different backgrounds and interests to come on the show. And as we know, you were one of them. So if anyone wants to listen to that episode, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll link it below for sure.
Yeah, so I do have people from so many backgrounds. And like I have doctors, I have ministers, I have educators, I have yeah, what do you call it? People who have went through horrific things in their lives and have come back stronger or come back with a new perspective. I have had people who have what other people might deem things that would be difficult to live with and have found ways to gain strength from that. So it's very, very deep, the various types of things. And then I have a lot of people who are also have authors who have various stories to tell.
So what's
And
the number one thing that you've learned?
from the podcast,
Uh-huh.
hmm, well, I've learned that no matter how many people you listen to, there's still more to get to know, and, and that I and there's never an end to the depths to which we can get to know ourselves and join in exploring what it means to be in whatever way we see that at
Hmm.
this moment.
Yeah, you might be seeing me like look over. It's because I'm looking at your chart and this part like lit up because like you could like your eyes lit up and so I looked over at your chart and you have Scorpio as your north node and it's in the seventh house and the seventh house is about one-on-one conversations or not necessarily conversations. It could be like relationships. It could go deep into like marriage or like business partnerships, like things like that, but it connects down to your fifth house of expression. So that's why I'm saying it's about the podcast, like going deep and talking about these different ideas that could change the way that people move forward in their lives because you also have Uranus there. And that's the planet of revolution, and it's conjunct your moon sign in Libra. So it's like this explosion of just love to go deep and to be able to see these different perspectives of how people experience life. But I really wanted to talk about your sun sign conjunct Saturn in your Leo, because Leo is a sign of like warmth and energy and creativity, and you've mentioned your creativity. So maybe we could talk about that, or just how do you experience feeling the like an explosion of joy, but also feeling contained because Saturn is the planet of boundaries and like containment, restrictions, structure, discipline, like that kind of energy. So like how do you balance shining out but also keeping yourself composed?
Well, the creative side is to allow things to be there. So it's like it's not like not many people would I don't know, maybe not, but anyways, for me it's a matter of saying, okay, it's okay that this is here because then I can be creative. As long as I'm totally criticizing myself or putting myself down or saying it's not okay to be critical or not okay to be this or to be that, then creativity ebbs and doesn't work as well. So it's a matter of saying, okay, what is here now is the right thing to be here now.
Is it about like being resourceful?
It's resourcefulness is something that comes from allowing that, right? From deciding that it's okay to be where you're at and for things to be the way they are and to use whatever is in front of you, right? Or in behind you or whatever. Just use what's there. And that yes, that is resourceful, of course, but you have to be okay with being resourceful because you can get in your own way. Say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not allowed to use that, even though it's here in that way, because it would be a different way than it has been used by everyone else, right? And that's something that is also important in the work with children. You have to give them some freedom to use things differently than you were planning them to be used. So yeah.
So is that like with patients then, like to allow them to try the other ways or like because I think that when we see something done that we deem as wrong, it's hard to take a step back and allow it to happen because it has been used the same way for centuries. So is it patience or what would you call that?
Hmm. Well, I speak of open-mindedness, and I
Okay.
think, I think that's, and yes, patience is only possible if you trust the process, right? So you have to trust that it has its reasons for being there. So yes, with kids, it's important, and also for yourself, is to allow a process to show itself because you can't plan that. You
Mm.
can't really plan that. So all the planning that you may do may be ripped apart in a moment, in the moment. And that is hard for me as well. When I've planned things out and then things go totally differently. Yeah, I do have a process with that to learn to let that go. But yeah, and other times you decide, okay, I have so many things that I already know how to do. So if something comes up, you have resources. So that's another thing, building resources or building on the resources you have and using them when the need arises.
Mhm. Okay, interesting. Because okay, so with Leo, it's that it's a playful way of knowing. So I'm thinking like the way that you interact with your students, it could be seen as a playful way if you're allowing them to have this freedom and to try out these different ways of using whatever. how do you experience playful knowing? Like, do you see your students maybe using playful knowing, like learning through play?
Well, playing is the way that children learn. So, and grown-ups do too, actually. And no matter how many people think that that's different, it's not. So that's why not everyone is happy with these structured ways of learning and these linear ways of learning.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, there are people who love that, but it's not something that fits for everyone. And and playing means that you can choose make up the rules that you follow and change them as you go if necessary. So that means there's a huge difference, right? So these structured things that have to be done always the same way or the way that is given, it does not cater to that need to be able to adapt and change the rules as you go.
Wow, yes, exactly. So you have a Leo stellium. You have, oh wow, a lot in here. You have Mercury, Venus, your Sun, Saturn. And Leo, I feel like is like I was saying earlier, like it's just like the shiny planet, the one that just wants to bring joy. And I'm a Leo, so I always thought like there has to be something deeper to Leo. Like it can't just be the shallow, but that's what the outside world sees. It's just they're just playing all the time. It's just fun playing. But you're absolutely right that playing is how we learn, is how we can can build new societies, can change the way that everything goes because nobody's going to change if it's going to be boring. Like it has to be fun, it has to be exciting, and then that's how we're going to be able to move the ball forward and progress as a civilization.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is what is exciting? And that's a big question that you can put in there, or what is joyful? Now,
Hmm.
and that's why it's always a question how much um, set boundaries are put out there, even for us grown-ups, to have too many rules um, behind us telling us what we have to fulfill can actually get in the way of getting the job done.
Yeah.
And that's so significant in every environment is can you find a way to enjoy it, right? Or are you gonna be unhappy with what's going on?
Hmm. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Wanako. We are almost out of time. So my last question is, what are your last words as a polymath for everybody? So polymath is just a little loving a little of everything, which clearly you very much are.
Hmm. Well, let's just say from every area of exploration, there's things you can use for other areas of exploration.
Hmm. Awesome. Could you share where people can find you?
Well, you can find my podcast, The Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy. It's on YouTube and all kinds of podcast platforms, pretty much everyone. And you can find me, um, yeah, well, I have a Telegram channel. Maybe you'll put the link in the
Definitely.
show notes
Mhm.
where one can actually join in the live podcast recordings and be there or become a guest. You can just have to reach out to me but in order to do the recording, it's best to come in the Telegram channel that we have so that you can record it with me. And we have to set up the time, of course. So yeah, anyone's invited to be a guest.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And that's it for this episode of ILA Radio. Thank you for listening and for tuning in to the many ways we come to know ourselves and the world. If something in this conversation sparked insight or reminded you of your own path, I invite you to keep exploring it. Journal about it, talk to a friend, read a book, follow some social media accounts, or just notice what the universe is whispering next. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who's questioning what learning could be. So until next time, I'm Laura Alyn, and this is ILA Radio, where we tune into all ways of knowing. Thanks so much for being here. See you next week. Bye.